In your reality shifting journey, actually, at many points, even if you're not reality shifting, you are going to feel this sense of, I'm not sure about that one. And when you feel that emotion, it's kind of like intuition meets hesitance. Learn from my mistakes and from other people's mistakes and listen to that feeling. Because what happens is that when you don't listen to it and you are swayed by the mind or the heart or the body or even a spiritual connection, I've fallen into that, you ignore the signs of misalignment, the ways that maybe your future directions are not in parallel or not in tandem to each other or not conjoined, and worse yet, they're at odds or going in separate directions. And then you invest in this relationship and you realize, oh my God, have I wasted X number of years because we were never going in the same direction? That's one example. Second example. And just to be clear, I actually don't believe in wasted years, but this is a thought trap that many people fall into, so you might find yourself falling into that thought trap at the end of the road of realizing, looking back, that at the very beginning there were signs and signals that perhaps your value system was not on the same page. What you both wanted was not actually in alignment. One person wanted to travel. One person never wanted to leave their hometown. And so a long-term relationship with somebody and a partnership like that means that one person is going to have to compromise. And sometimes people are willing to do so, but it can come at great expense. Now, what I'm struggling with is realizing that I'm at the end of the road with a partnership, that I'm looking back at the beginning and I could see misalignment, such that there was an imbalance in the energetic connection, and the shadow patterns that were active were repelling to me. So I found myself not wanting to engage with them a lot and only being able to spend a limited amount of time with them and their presence, meaning they wanted way more from me than I could give. And my intermittent communication with them activated some wounds that they had, some rejection wounds. And then I would feel pressured to respond or to emotionally take care of them because they were still not self-regulating and still looking at the relationship as validation, even though it was just friendship, as validation of something inside them. And when I was trying to do my own thing or go my own way, this would be deeply triggering for them. And so we separated and we found a rhythm that worked for us, which was little to no contact. But recently, we have been engaging more, and I felt compelled to help them out by giving them a channeled message and tapping into their destiny line. It's part of the gift that I have. Some of you also have this, of being able to tap into people's timelines and being able to understand things in the ether, pulling that information down and being a messenger of sorts. And so they were having a particular problem that was repetitive in their life, and I felt compelled to see what information I could gather from the ether, and I did. And through this process, I had a little bit of a moment, just a tiny one, that I kind of shrugged off, that now in retrospect, perhaps this was not a good idea. And when you have these moments, I think that this is what you can take from my experience, that it's worth listening to. I had an insight, a feeling like, don't interfere, because this person they're caught in a loop, like a record, has grooves. And it's like they were stuck in a groove. And I was coming along like the needle, trying to be like, oh, I'm going to get you out. I'm going to get you out. And there was a part of me, maybe my higher self, like beaming down to me, like, just don't bother. Just don't worry about it. Almost as though I could feel maybe that the universe had tried and tried and tried and was like, there's more harm to trying now. Some people are rigid. I don't like to believe this, and this is one of my mistakes. Some people are actually legitimately stuck for this lifetime. And I think this is a hard pill to swallow for somebody that A, likes to help people, and B, is inspired by transformation journeys, and C, feels a calling to help people, and sort of like a deep calling. It's like, I'm gonna save everybody. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not, you're not, you're not. And I kind of dismissed this feeling and went ahead. And something in me proposed helping them out of this problem with the solution. And all of a sudden, a business opportunity was forming. And we had a moment where I thought to myself, oh my God, we're not in alignment. I was like, oh my God, we're not in alignment. Oh my God, we're really not in alignment. Because I was so repelled by the direction of the project that I was like, I can't put my name to this. This doesn't represent what I represent, and I can't be attached to this. I can't be attached to this. This is like the opposite direction from where I want to go. And anyway, so I was honest about that. And I said, hey, I don't think this project is in alignment with me. And I also feel like you need a subordinate. I'm coming to you as a collaborator. And here's my recommendation for the budget that you are proposing and for the direction that you want to give to somebody. I think you need a junior person. And they came back and they were like, let's work it out. And you're right. The way that this is going is not where I wanted to go either, and where we actually are in alignment. And they were truthful, they were sincere. I could feel that, right? And it was almost like a mindset slip. And as a result, I was like, okay, all right. And so when we got to the negotiating the price bit, there was another moment that I was like, oh my God, we're not in alignment. Right? So now this is like a tidal wave of no alignment. And I'm looking at this entire unfolding and looking back at the moment that we met by the pool in Costa Rica in bikinis and, just laying out in the sun, the iguanas chilling next to us and talking. And this was a very interesting person. Very, very, very interesting. Very gifted, very intelligent, very attractive, very unique. I love unique people. And also very wounded, but had done a lot of personal work. And what I realized is that the lessons that are active for some people, and this is a takeaway for you, the lessons that are active for some people need to be a match for you. Because what happens is that even if you're working with a very intelligent, insightful person that's done a lot of work, you will be the recipient of their baggage, whatever is active. And when you start understanding this deeply, like many of you are already, you start to realize that the way you show up is really contingent upon the space that is created in your partnerships. And sometimes people don't have the bandwidth to hold the space for you to show up in your badass self. Instead, they carve out this little tiny hole that you have to fit yourself into. And they're working through a lesson and a projection that they are putting on top of you. So it's almost like they don't ever really see you. They don't ever really get to see what you have to offer. And it reminds me of another misaligned friendship that I had that also resulted in a failure of a business opportunity that I was super excited about. But they still had a perfectionist wound. Like they were deeply, deeply, deeply afraid of judgment in the world. And so as a result, they ran their business like a megalomaniac micromanager. And when it came to a partnership collaboration with them, I showed up and they, with their perfectionist lens, had these amazingly irrelevant critiques that were so demoralizing, not for me, but like for the, like the partnership. It was like, I'm an artist, you're an artist, right? I'm a painter, you're a sculptor. And we work on a collaboration together. I'm not really a painter, by the way. I know some of you are. And beautiful paintings, by the way. And so we work on a collaboration together. And you, as a sculptor, start critiquing my painting style because you are afraid of the judgment of our collaboration out in the world. So you hyper control it, even though it's not your place, right? It's like I'm working on my side, you're working on your side. And the synergy between us is supposed to put something out in the world. But then all of a sudden, it's like you take over and it's not a collaboration. It's a micromanaging project. And there's something to be said about controlling every facet to make sure that the quality and the design and everything meets your eye, right? But it's totally another ball game when it's actually just an expression of your anxiety and of fear of failure and fear of judgment and perfectionism. It's a real thing that you can observe in people, that when they're deeply frightened, they will become hyper controlling and hyper critical. And it could be like the best person out there, the most experienced person, and they'll be super excited to bring you onto the team. And you'll be on a pedestal for a moment. And then you start to deliver work and they're never satisfied. These people are fucking exhausting to work for. They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. And I can't do it. And you shouldn't either. It's so toxic. It's so toxic. Because let's say they're writing a manuscript, right? And let's say you're writing a manuscript too. Their manuscript, let's say, is like a B minus and yours is an A minus. They're going to treat yours like it's an F, just to give you perspective. So it's not like they're really better. It's like, it's this undue criticism that is not constructive, that is actually coming from a deep, deep wounded place from within. So when you feel misalignment, it's really important to catch it early, because what happens is that you sign up. I was going to say waste time, but it's all valuable. So I have to correct my own thinking here. It's all valuable, right? But you end up building and investing time into a union with somebody, relationship, business, friendship, and then you try to do something with it. And it's like, I wrote a poem about this, about a toxic love, that it was like trying to turn a desiccated, ashen mess into gold. That it's just impossible. That when you're really trying to collaborate with somebody or be in a relationship with somebody, it turns to shit. Invariably, when you're genuinely misaligned, it's either a failure to launch, it is a power struggle, it is a display of woundedness, it is a lashing, it doesn't come to anything good, in my opinion, except for the wisdom of you learning how to trust yourself. And looking back, because this has been years now, in both situations, it was years of investment, only to realize that it was a desiccated mess, ashen mess that we were trying to turn into gold. And so the feeling of misalignment is sort of like I mentioned before, hesitation meets intuition. So it's in your body and it's subtle. Your mind can easily forget about it. You can easily dismiss it. And it's kind of like a, not so sure about that one. And in my experience, the energetic feedback feels a little sick. Like it feels a little heavy, and it has almost this nauseous, toxic tinge to it that repels you just a little bit, where when you maybe get a text message from them initially, you're like, like your phone bings or whatever, and you pick it up and your first reaction is like, oh, get to that later. Like there's just a slight repelling energy, but maybe you're not operating from a high level of awareness. Like I wasn't operating, and I'm a very self-aware person, but I wasn't as in tune with those subtle feelings. And when I was really interested in a person, if they were unique, if they had, an interesting career or good conversationalist, or, like, I just love unique people. And so my mind would sort of override that. And now I'm a lot better. Like, for example, the other night, somebody rang my doorbell, and I went outside, and there was this guy there, and he was like, hey, this balcony, can I come up and watch this parade? Because a parade was going on at the time. And I kind of had that feeling that I was like, don't know about this one. And he just so happened to be pointing to a balcony that wasn't mine, so I couldn't give him permission anyway. And I told him that it wasn't mine, it was my neighbor's. And he was like, well, can I go ask them? And I was like, and then he told me that he was from Berlin, and I thought that was really interesting, and he was a photographer, and I also thought that was interesting, and he seemed like an interesting person, like somebody that I might be curious to have a conversation and get to know him for a little bit. But because I had that, I don't know, I was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. That's their private space. Anyway, so I didn't think much of it. And I exited and was going to watch a parade a little bit later. And he was still standing outside. And I told him, if he saw the neighbors pushing a stroller and, that he could ask them directly, but I wasn't going to ask them. He was still standing outside. And I thought that was really weird. And he stopped me as I was passing. I wasn't going to say anything to him. And he said, is that a house? I was like, what? He was like, is that a house? And I kind of got this feeling like, why is he asking this? Like, why is he mining me for information? It's one of those intuitions like, red flag, right? He asked again, is that a house or an Airbnb? And I hate when people press things, And I was like, it's not an Airbnb, it's a house. And he was like, oh, okay. And I walked off. And I didn't see him again. But had I let him in with those creepy vibes, who knows? And I didn't get a feeling that he was dangerous, but I got a feeling that it was weird. And that was enough to make me say no. So when you have those feelings, right? Because it just played out to a weird encounter on the street of him mining me for information versus letting him into talk to my neighbor, letting him into the private residence, letting him into the shared spaces. Who knows how that would have played out? So you always have an option whenever there's a misalignment, but it's up to you to be in tune with your body's signals of the I don't know about that one. Hesitance meets intuition. Good luck. We'll talk soon.